Hi everyone, and welcome to case project proposal presentation. My name is Tunja Gidone. I'm a graduate student studying mechanical engineering at the University of Calgary, specialized in energy and environment.
Hi everyone, my name is Moses Kemiji. I'm a master's student in geomatics engineering.
Hi everyone, my name is Afimi Akizakali. I'm a master's student in the Department of Civil Engineering.
Hi everyone, I'm Nancy Wang, same as Moses. I'm a geomatics engineering student as a master degree.
Okay, so for our case proposal, we're going to be looking at the Deepwater Horizon spill. The Deepwater Horizon basically is a massive machine, a submersible offshore drilling rig that's used to drill subsea wells for oil exploration. And on April 20th, 2010, there was a massive disaster, the blowout of the Deepwater Horizon that killed 11 workers. I was going to walk through the details of what happened in this project. So the Deepwater Horizon, there were key companies involved: BP, British Petroleum, Transocean, they were the ones who owned and operated the rig. Halliburton, they were responsible for the cementing, and Cameron International, the manufacturer and blowout preventer. So all these companies, they were interacting and working on the Deepwater Horizon on that day of April 10th, 2010. All right. So BP, British Petroleum, they leased the Deepwater Horizon for $1 million a day to dig a well at the Macondo well. That's about 18,360 feet deep. That was the deepest ever well that was tried in ascertained in history, located at 41 miles off the coast of Louisiana at the Gulf of Mexico. So BP, they had a timeline to complete the well and begin the extraction, but as a result of technical complexities that we're going to see, of what they were delayed. So they were about 43 days late. That's over $43 million above budget. So there was a lot of pressure from the managers and to catch up with the time. And so they had to skip a lot of details, which eventually caused to an oil spill that caused the explosion of the Deepwater Horizon, killing 11 members and 17 members were injured. So the Deepwater Horizon actually, as a result of their, as a result of BP's pressure, the pressure from BP, over 4.9 million barrels of oil spilled into the Gulf. The rig burned for 18 hours and sank after 2 days. So right now we're going to look at a little bit more technical details of the failure.
The final cement job at the Macondo well took place between April 19th and 20th, 2010. This is where the chain of failure began, because this cement job is ideally meant to seal the well to prevent oil and gas from seeping out. You're supposed to seal it before the next team comes for the drilling of the oil. That was the first mistake that was made by the cementing team. Then secondly, 21 stabilizers or centralizers were recommended through their simulations to be used to stabilize the pipes used for the well, but instead 6 were used because of some complications and also as a means to cut costs. On the 20th of April, the team known as Schlumberger was supposed to come and test the integrity of the concrete, but they were sent away by BP company men. This is most likely due to the fact that they did not want to know if there were any issues or not. So another test was done, which were negative pressure tests. The results that were given were confusing and not straightforward, but they interpreted it in a way that suits their purpose, and that gave them a false sense of safety. At around 9:30 p.m., natural gas and oil started rushing up the well uncontrollably. This is called a kick. This is the first sign that a blowout is about to occur. It can be prevented if swift actions are taken, which they were not, because at 9:47, the blowout preventer, which is the machine responsible for cutting and sealing the pipe, it failed. It failed safe that failed. So it failed due to three main reasons. One, uncentered pipe. Because 6 centralizers were used instead of 21, when the kick occurred, the pipe shifted away from position, thereby preventing the shear rams, which are a component part of the blowout preventer. It couldn't cut it cleanly, and it left some of it intact, thereby leading to gas and oil seeping into the rig, which led to an explosion. Secondly, the reason the blowout preventer failed was a dead battery pod, a dead control pod, which had been dead for months leading up to the disaster, and wrongly positioned shear arms. The shear arms were positioned where joints were supposed to be, and it couldn't cut the pipe cleanly. At 9:49 p.m., gas reached the rig platform and it ignited. The explosion killed 11 workers instantly. All continued gushing from the broken well on the seafloor, and it took 87 days before it was finally capped.
There were several ethical dilemmas exposed in this case. The first of all is a conflict between the safety and the cost and schedule. As we have mentioned before, like 1 day of delay will cause $1 billion, so that BP company, they tend to choose skip the safety checks. Although project test results were looking confused, but they chose to skip that, and they chose that because they want to save money and time. So this exposed the conflict between the public safety and the corporate efficiency. And the second one would be the transparency and the corporate pressure. So we all know that the engineers, they have already knew that the project test results were not normal, but after they have consulted to the management, and the management chose to ignore the warnings, but the engineers, they didn't chose to stand for themselves, and they didn't do any whistleblowing thing. So this is a conflict between the honesty and the obedience to the authority. And the third one would be the short-term profit and the long-term responsibility. As the oil went into the ocean, the environment was destroyed, and will take like several decades for the environment to recover. So putting their own economic goals on top of the environmental and social responsibility. As a conclusion, there are 5 ethical principles that the whole team have been violated. So it will be the public safety, honesty, responsibility, personal integrity, and sustainability.
The Deepwater Horizon disaster raised several ethical questions for engineers. First, how can engineers develop the moral courage to challenge and save others when faced with pressure from management? In this case, several engineers recognize warning signs from the negative pressure test, but they stayed silent. From a deontological and virtue ethics view, courage and duty means speaking up to protect the public safety, even when it risks conflict or career pressure. Second question would be: to what extent should individual engineers be held accountable when organization and regulatory system fails? Let's look at this from the lens of micro and macro ethics. That reminds us that the responsibility is shared but not erased. Engineers must act ethically within their own sphere, while organizations and regulators must also create an environment that supports ethical decisions. The third question: how should engineers balance efficiency and innovation with their ethical duty to protect people and the environment? Right? The leadership and value ethics ensures that true leadership aligns organization goals with ethical values, ensuring that safety and integrity are never compromised for speed or profit, which is what we experienced in the case of the Deep Horizon oil spill. So we are going to discuss furthermore on one of these questions. How can engineers develop the moral courage to challenge and save work orders when faced with pressure from management? So from the engineer point of view, it is our utmost duty to protect the safety, health, and welfare of the public because they put so much trust in us. So, and it's also that the responsibility lies both in our actions and inactions. So engineers are not meant to be morally mute. Like if you're mute, you are enabling harm, so which can lead to a lot of penalties. So we are still held accountable when system fails, right? If we decide not to speak up. So how can engineers now develop the moral courage to challenge this unsafe pressure from the management? Like Nancy mentioned earlier, there's whistleblowing. So what you guys think about the organization and regulatory failures? Where do they come in on this part? Should they create an environment for engineers to be able to speak up?
Yeah, I think so. So I think it also all comes with the level of training or the level of consciousness that the engineers had, even that they had a lot of pressure from their supervisors to complete the project, and they were also looking at the profits that they will make, which at the end they ended up paying a lot more than what they planned. So it's very important to be accountable as individual engineers first, even and not to oversee safety for profits.
Yeah, so ultimately, accountability in engineering is distributed, it's not diluted, it's not erased. So engineers must act with integrity and courage within flawed system. So because silence on ethical matters, as we mentioned earlier, it allows to grow. So complex organization may limit influence, but engineers must remain responsible for speaking up, protecting the public, and maintaining the society's trust. So when we are faced with pressure from the management, there are several avenues that encourage us to speak up. We have the whistleblowing scheme where you can anonymously tip the relevant organization about something going on in the organization that you're working in. So yeah, thank you.
Thank you guys for listening. Thank you.
All right, thank you.